Hello, advanced English learners. Welcome back to another native English speaker conversation. I'm joined today by the one and only Greg. We're going to have a conversation today that I think you're going to enjoy. I hope you will enjoy. The reason we do these conversations is predominantly for you to have English comprehension practice, exposure to how native English speakers speak, also working on your conversation skills, your communication skills more broadly, working on your prosody, your intonation, the stress patterns, and so on and so forth, not to mention vocab acquisition. So today's topic is all about robo taxis.
Ooh.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what the robo taxi is? What is a robo taxi? I think a lot of people can probably guess, but I'd like for you to share your opinion.
Sure. Robotaxi, I love that name because it sounds like it's straight out of the Jetsons.
Yes.
Which is this futuristic cartoon from our childhood and probably our parents' childhood.
Probably, yeah.
So what are robotaxis? Robotaxis, robo is short for robot. There was a movie that came out in the 90s with Arnold Schwarzenegger called RoboCop.
Oh.
So robo just means, it's short for robot. So it's this old school term for robot. Taxi, we all know what taxis are. So what's a robotaxi? It's a robot taxi.
So does that include a driver or no driver?
That's the key distinction here, is that a robotaxi in its ultimate form has no driver.
So it's a driverless vehicle.
It's a driverless vehicle. It's a driverless taxi. And what's interesting is this point about driverless.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, our cars are already kind of robots, right? They do a lot of things automatically that we don't even realize are taking place.
That's the thing. You bring up that good word, automatic. Automatic means it's not manual, meaning a human doesn't manually do something. It's an automatic response for action from the mechanism, from the machine, aka robot.
That's right. So when I think of a robot, I think of a robot is this sort of combination of different automated actions that the machine takes. So the more automated it becomes, the more robotic it becomes in my mind.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm saying that robotaxis technically, from my perspective, exist on a spectrum.
Okay.
In a spectrum, you have on the one end, something that's completely manual. That's basically a bicycle, right? A bicycle is you're pedaling, you're steering completely, everything's controlled by you. On the other end of the spectrum, you have a robotaxi, which is you literally open the door, you sit down inside the vehicle, you close the door, and it drives you to wherever you're going without you even needing to tell it where you're going.
So we start to see this already in futuristic films and series. Like one of the ones that we watched recently was Westworld on HBO, and they show the town. There's a futuristic town, and people get around in driverless vehicles, and there's just passenger seats. So there's not even a section in the front with a steering wheel. It's just passenger seats.
That's right. And so going back to the spectrum, where we are currently is we're not at that robotaxi side of things, but we're also not in the horse and cart. And this is an important distinction to make because we're actually getting quite a bit closer to the robotaxi side of things, faster than I think people realize. When you get into a car now, particularly a car manufactured in 2020 or later, it's gonna have a lot of automatic robotic features. Steering assist, right? So it's gonna keep you within your lane. Detection from the cars in front of you. So if it thinks you're gonna collide with the car in front of you, it's gonna automatically stop for you or slow down for you.
Navigation is another one, right?
Navigation, a lot of cars now, including Tesla, have actual automated navigation in there now. So you can plug in where you're going, and on certain road conditions, it will actually navigate the car for you, which is pretty cool.
Right.
But still not at that point where you can actually just get into a car and it drives for you, unless you're lucky enough to live in a few specific locations where they are piloting true, fully blown robo taxis.
And so when they're piloting it, they're testing it out. It's like a pre-launch in a way.
Very much.
So they're piloting it, meaning testing it out, and then
a beta.
Exactly, a beta test, and then receiving feedback from the study, so to speak, or you can also call it a pilot study. and then incorporating all that feedback into the next version after the beta test.
Which presumably will address a larger or serve a larger population.
Right, and to resolve the bugs and all of that before it reaches a wider mass. So Uber and Lyft are now not doing their own driverless vehicles, but they are starting to roll out these robo-taxi
yes and no. So
services.
They are probably the two that had pioneered it, or at least their business model was predicated on automated drivers eventually taking over, because it's expensive to have an actual person driving a car. That's why cabs cost money, is because you're paying for someone to spend their precious time driving you around. It sounds a little luxurious when you say it that way, right?
It's like a chauffeur.
It's a chauffeur, exactly. So when you can automate that and the car can drive itself, you take out a large chunk of the cost of the taxi service. And so that's why Uber and Lyft were so gung-ho of this driverless future. Unfortunately, it turns out it's really hard to automate a car, to automate the driving process. And it's not because it's hard for the car to stay on the road. It's because the road is predominantly occupied by humans.
And human drivers.
And human drivers.
Yeah.
And human drivers are very unpredictable, and they'll do things that we really shouldn't be doing.
Like jaywalking. So walking when there's not a crosswalk.
And no crosswalk, or they're walking in front of a green light when only cars should be driving. And the cars themselves, maybe they're merging lanes when they shouldn't be merging lanes.
Maybe they're texting, which is
Maybe
a big
they're texting, maybe they're speeding, whatever.
Yeah.
The point is humans do random things, and robots don't like random things. Robots follow the rules, whatever the rules are.
Robots are systematic.
By definition, robots don't do random things unless you specifically program them to do random things.
Exactly.
So the point here is it's very hard to do. And so Uber and Lyft tried. They actually didn't end up succeeding, and they ended up selling their sort of robotaxi arms off to other companies. And so now the industry leader in robotaxis happens to be Google or Alphabet. So Alphabet has a division, an exploratory division, that's dedicated to driverless cars and specifically robotaxis. And so they have pilots, I think, in Phoenix. They might even be piloting something in San Francisco, or it's a competitor called GM Cruise, GM General Motors, which is a huge car manufacturer. Right. They have a subdivision they purchased called Cruise, Cruise.ai maybe. But the point is, Cruise is another competitor, and they have a robotaxi service that they're piloting as well.
So when do you think robotaxis will actually be something that we can all use?
Oh gosh, that is like the $1 million question.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, everyone wants to know, and people have been predicting it for years. So if you went back to 2010, the estimate you would have gotten is 2015.
Right.
If you're in 2015, the estimate would have been 2020. We're now 2022.
Almost 23.
Almost 23, that's true. And the estimate is like 2025, 6, maybe 7. Right now, it feels like it's just a few years away, but it's been just a few years away for a long time.
Yeah, so maybe closer to like 2035.
I think, reasonably speaking, based on the progress of technology, which is exponential, right? Yeah. Our AI models, our machine learning models, which are the sort of software behind the robotaxi technology. Yes. It's the guiding systems. It's the ability to handle random, unpredictable events. It's the ability to learn from the environment and programmatically, monotonically improve.
Right.
That whole process is getting better and better. And so the speed at which we improve is accelerating.
Right.
So right now it still feels far off, but this is a long-winded way of saying my guess is probably by 2030, we will have widespread robotaxi services.
Now, we also talk about air taxis. So I wonder what's going to actually come into the fold sooner. If it's going to be automated vehicles, meaning on land driving, or if we're going to have not space travel per se, but air travel. So flying basically...
Flying personal vehicles.
Flying personal, yes, that's a mouthful. Flying personal vehicles, exactly.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Now we're really talking Jetsons, because that classic intro to the Jetsons, the Jetsons.
Meet George Jetson.
Yeah, exactly. They're literally flying around in their own personal vehicles.
Oh my gosh. That was my favorite cartoon as a little kid.
I remember in the early 90s, I was in second grade. I remember drawing a coloring book for school. And
like
the scene.
An image.
It was like, I had a coloring book.
Oh, okay.
In which there was a scene.
Sure, okay.
Depicting flying cars, and it said the year 2000.
Oh, funny.
So back then, that's when we thought that would happen.
Y2K.
So nowadays, everyone's like flying cars. Yeah, forget about it. In fact, I think there's like basically a colloquial line that says, yeah, that'll happen as soon as we get flying cars.
Okay.
Right, which is basically saying it'll never happen. Turns out it will happen. We have that technology now. We have vehicles that can operate autonomously.
Yeah.
And they're really cool. They're electric powered.
Right.
So they're way more quiet than airplanes. Right. They're small, so they can fit 1 or 2 people, so they can go in all different directions. They have multiple propellers on them, which means there's a lot of redundant systems, making them a lot safer than a helicopter.
Okay, I was going to ask that. How safe are they? Because helicopters, we hear all sorts of things about helicopters being not that safe.
Yeah, so helicopters are still a lot safer than driving. They don't feel safe. Yeah. Because they're in the air.
Being airborne, there's something about being airborne that I think makes a lot of people nervous.
But statistically speaking, driving actually is one of the most dangerous things we can do.
It's true.
Which is why I'm looking forward to robots driving us, because they'll take the human error out of it and hopefully make driving a lot safer.
Exactly.
But, so flying cars, one would assume that if robo-taxis on the ground driving cars are 5-7 years off, then you'd assume flying cars are twice that.
Yes.
What's interesting is that's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
Because in the air, you don't have all of the obstacles that you have on the ground, right? You have 3-dimensional space to work with. So there's a lot more room to wiggle. And there aren't trees and dividers and pedestrians that you're going to collide with.
That's true.
So the real challenge in the air is just simply getting regulatory approval, because the air is very much a regulated space. You don't want things flying into buildings and so forth. You also don't want pieces of cars falling off and hitting people on the ground. But ultimately, from a technical perspective, you could argue that the air travel is actually less complicated than ground travel, at least the way our infrastructure is currently configured. And so there is a chance, and it's, call me hopeful and optimistic, there is a chance though that air taxis, automated air taxis, actually come to market at a mass scale sooner than ground taxis. And you can already see airlines like United and Delta making real investments. We're talking tens of millions of dollars into air taxi services. They're thinking like, instead of taking a cab to the airport, you take an air taxi to the airport. So for short, sort of small flights.
Maybe domestic travel in the country that you're in. So that's an interesting place to, I think, wrap up, because we don't really know when these types of transportation methods are going to come into the fold. But I think I'm aligning with what you're saying, Greg, because I think there are fewer obstacles in the airspace for maybe something like this to actually start working. And I just think that for humans to feel comfortable with it, I think that might also take a little bit of time. So we might actually see driverless vehicles in operation sooner, just because of that.
Because it feels
it feels
like something we're used to.
Yeah, but I would be interested in trying either. I think if it's safe and tested enough, then I would be curious to do it, especially if it's environmentally friendly, as they are supposed to be, electric vehicles.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable perspective to take, and I think most people feel that way. Let's just wait until we're sure it's safe. As an early adopter myself, I'm more willing probably than most to take the first leap. But that's mostly because I just see it as such an enhancement to our lives. Think about not needing to live in the city, right?
Yeah.
You can live out in the suburbs, way outside the city, and just take an air taxi and not have to worry about traffic. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the countryside, and then you can go into the city within just a half hour without any traffic.
And that's a very manageable commute. And you get a nice podcast going or a book, because you don't even have to be driving, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can be just relaxing, sleeping, take a nap, whatever.
But we dream.
We do. Yeah, we're futurists, I think.
Yeah, we'll see when it actually happens. Let's hold ourselves accountable in a couple of years. We can go back and look at this video and see how accurate our predictions were.
I'm curious to hear from you. What do you think? First of all, would you hop into a driverless vehicle? Would you do an air taxi type of thing? What would you feel comfortable doing? Do you think there's another mode of transportation that we're not even thinking about
Underwater?
underwater. Yeah, who knows? Could be. We do with submarines, right?
Elon Musk is building the Boring Company, which is literally a tunneling company.
Yeah. All right, that's true. I mean, I think that will be useful one day.
Sure.
We'll see. All right, so let us know what you think. Really curious to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to complete the worksheet after listening to this, or maybe while listening to this, to test your listening comprehension and to make sure that you're getting the gist of the conversation. So as a reminder, I send those out only through our newsletter. So make sure that you're subscribed to our 100% free newsletter that you can get on advancedenglish.co. You'll just get the pop-up that says, would you like this? Or you can just scroll down and you'll see join mailing list, and you can just type in your email there. So we don't send out any spam. I'm not a spam fan. Greg's not a spam fan. So no spam for us, just good, solid, quality content. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you very soon. Bye for now.